We are more than halfway done with the 2024 NFL season, and for some teams, like you can see some of them here inside the top 10, their season is over. Although they're not statistically eliminated from the postseason, we all know they're not going to be playing late into January, so I feel like it's a good time to do a mock draft and kind of, I guess, predict and give my thoughts about some of these prospects coming into the NFL in just a few months. Now, obviously, doing a mock draft months before April means that the draft order is not going to be super accurate. Some of these players may even go back to college for another year, so there's still a lot of moving parts. It's just a fun exercise to kind of see what could potentially happen down the line in April. But here we go with the Jacksonville Jaguars, the #1 overall pick, and it's kind of wild that this team does have a decent chance to pick #1, especially with Trevor Lawrence now having a shoulder injury. He could potentially miss multiple games the rest of the season. I mean, I don't really see a point in playing him. They're not going to make the postseason. Why not get a great draft pick? And I do think if they are picking #1 overall, I think Travis Hunter from Colorado does seem to be a realistic scenario here. I think he does translate better at cornerback at the next level. I mean, I feel like we just see so many receivers like in day 3 or even sometime in day 2 that end up being really, really good players. I think NFL teams really just want a star-studded cornerback and somebody who could step in right away and be one of the best in the league. But maybe Hunter is used as like a gadget player at times. On offense, I think he is probably the most unique player we've seen enter the draft in some time. And the Jaguars, who need help in their secondary, could use another weapon for Trevor Lawrence. I think he'd be a good fit there. Now, would Deion Sanders let Hunter go there? That's a different discussion because he's already said with Hunter and his son Shedeur Sanders, he's going to have a lot of say in where they end up. So will we let him go to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who have proven to be a pretty dysfunctional organization? I don't know. And that is why with the 2nd overall pick, I'm not going to have Shedeur Sanders go to the New York Giants. Although this does seem like a nice fit, I don't know if Deion Sanders is going to okay this. He has said he wants an organization that knows what they're doing. The Giants, they don't really seem like they know what they're doing. He's also said on multiple occasions, he wants Sanders to go to a place that's kind of like a warm weather type of city. So I don't think playing 8 games a year in New Jersey and then also playing the Philadelphia Eagles, I don't know exactly if that fits the type of team that he wants to go to. Will Deion have that much pull and power in deciding where Sanders goes? Who knows? Maybe even the Giants, because of where they're located, Shedeur could get all sorts of endorsements and all the spotlight. Maybe he okays him going to the New York Giants. Obviously, we just have to wait and see how all this plays out. But I'm going to have the Giants instead taking Cam Ward. I think that could be an awesome fit as well. Ward has really shot up the draft boards this year. I think last year, before he said he was going to come back for another year at college, I think he was around like a 4th or 5th round pick for Washington State. But this year with Miami, has a chance to win the Heisman Trophy, has the most passing touchdowns out of any quarterback in college football. He's been incredible. I do think there's some things to work on. And the thing about this quarterback class is there's not really a bunch of top-end prospects that are like, okay, this guy, he's going to come in right away and be incredible. He's not going to be a Jaden Daniels. I mean, I know Caleb Williams is struggling right now, but as a prospect, I don't think any of these guys are where Caleb was either. So Cam Ward, he has to learn how to play on time in the structure of the offense more consistently. If you see all of his highlight plays for Miami, he does some incredible things. He runs around, makes 10 spins behind the line of scrimmage, and then throws a dime down the field. But in the NFL, you cannot consistently do that on a down-to-down basis. We're kind of seeing that right now with Caleb Williams. He's struggling to stay in the pocket, go through his reads, find the open man, get first downs. And Cam Ward, he has to learn that. So will he reach his full potential with a team like the Giants, who, as I stated, aren't a super, well-run operation? Who knows? But maybe Brian Daboll, he does get another chance, another quarterback, and maybe he can develop that into Ward's game, have him reach his full potential. That could be a really nice fit. Now, the next 2 picks are interesting, the Titans and the Browns, because they both could go quarterback. Obviously, Will Levis in Tennessee, I don't think he's the long-term answer. Mason Rudolph, he sure is not the long-term answer. And the Browns, with the whole Deshaun Watson situation, he's still going to be on their books for, I think, maybe 2 or 3 more years. So, I mean, they obviously still could just draft a quarterback, but I don't really know if that's going to happen. And if there's one thing I know about Shedeur Sanders and Deion Sanders, he's not going to the Browns. There's a 0% chance that if the Browns are on the clock, Shedeur hasn't been drafted, he's not going there. He would rather go to the CFL than play for the Browns. So I don't see that as a potential fit. Maybe the Tennessee Titans, but I think the more realistic scenario is that one of these teams inside the top 10 that could potentially draft a quarterback is going to sign somebody like Justin Fields, who will be a free agent, maybe Sam Darnold again with JJ McCarthy coming back. And so one of those teams will get kind of their, I guess, stopgap starter for a year or two while they try and kind of build out the team. And so I think the Tennessee Titans could be one of those teams that goes out and signs like a Sam Darnold. I don't think it will be an offensive line again because they've spent their last 2 first-round picks on Peter Skronsky and then JC Latham. So I do think it's either going to be a weapon or kind of just a premium position, but I don't think you would take like a Malachi Starks here, who's more of a safety / nickel hybrid. I just don't see that there either. They don't really need help on the interior because they have Jeffrey Simmons, one of the best in the league, and then T'Vondre Sweat, who's looked like a beast this year. So I think Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona could be the selection here. And I guess the first true wide receiver off the board. And I do think McMillan is wide receiver 1 in this class currently. I mean, compared to like Luther Burden, Isaiah Bond, Emeka Ibuka, I think he's just the more complete player. We know for a fact he can win on the outside one-on-one. I'm not exactly sure if these other receivers here that are going to be going in the first round, we can say that for a fact. McMillan has the prototypical size. He's got the physicality to win on the outside. I think he's going to be the wide receiver 1 in this draft, and I think I'm going to have him going to Tennessee here. So now the Cleveland Browns, I think they probably just go BPA. This could be like a trade down spot to a team maybe trying to scoop up Shedeur Sanders. But I think if you're just going best player available, I think Mason Graham out of Michigan would be a great asset on their defensive line. Obviously not like a super big need for them, although their defensive lineman who they drafted from Ohio State, like in the 2nd round, I don't think he's even played a snap this year because he's on like the commissioner's exempt list. So who knows what's going on with that situation. I just think Mason Graham would be BPA at this point. And as I stated, don't see Shedeur Sanders signing off on going to Cleveland. So I think they just go with the best player. And I think Mason Graham makes a lot of sense. And now the Las Vegas Raiders. I've made a couple of videos on my channel talking about it, but I think this is a perfect spot for Sanders to go. The Raiders, they just brought in a minority owner in Tom Brady. And what is his connection with Shedeur Sanders? Well, he's been his mentor basically his entire high school, college career. I mean, they've both talked about it pretty openly. So that's one connection. You've got Sanders dapping up Mark Davis at a Las Vegas Aces game. That is the second connection. And then again, Deion Sanders has been very outspoken about this being a very nice fit. So I think Las Vegas is a very sneaky team to watch. I think potentially at the end of the season with how things are going for them, they could be like in the top 3 range, not really have to sweat out like the Titans and the Browns if they do take Sanders or not. But I think for right now with the draft order that we do have, I think this makes sense. Sanders to Las Vegas, and then the New England Patriots at number 6. I do think this is going to be an offensive spot. Could they go tackle? Could they go Luther Burden? Give Drake May another nice weapon? I think either makes sense, but I'm going to go ahead and go with Will Campbell just because of his versatility. He can play guard. He can play tackle. A lot of people want him to play guard at the next level because his arm length is not super long, but he does have very good size to be a tackle at the next level. And we'll just have to wait and see if his lack of reach maybe does kick him to the inside. But the Patriots, one of the worst offensive lines in the league. They want to protect their asset. I think Will Campbell, he makes a lot of sense. They could even go with the tackle from Texas and Kelvin Banks Jr. He's been getting a lot of hype as maybe the offensive tackle 1 because he is more of a true tackle at the next level than Campbell. But I'm going to have Campbell go here just because of the versatility. And the Patriots, they get a nice protector or Drake May. The New Orleans Saints are up next, and they're a very weird team for me because they just fired Dennis Allen. Who knows the direction of this franchise? If their current GM, Mickey Loomis, will be back, it just kind of feels like at this point, he's on scholarship to just be the GM of this team. But I feel like he should be gone just the way that he's been dealing with the contracts. And really, the Saints have no salary cap on a year-to-year basis, really no flexibility. I don't think they can get out of Derek Carr's contract, so I don't think this would be a quarterback spot yet. Maybe if things progress through the offseason, things kind of get weird, they bring in maybe a new offensive coach. I don't know. I just think the Saints are in a very bad spot as a franchise. So I think, honestly, what makes the most sense for me is taking the best player available. Will Johnson, they just traded away Marshawn Lattimore, maybe the best player on their entire team. They got some decent capital back for him, but now they need a new cornerback 1. Their secondary is fairly deep. I mean, they do have a couple other good cornerbacks like Paulson Adebo, but I do think they are lacking that true alpha cornerback 1. Will Johnson, very physical player. Honestly, not too far behind like Travis Hunter in terms of just being a really, really good corner. I just think Hunter's a little bit more better of an athlete, which is why I have him going number 1. But Will Johnson's still a very, very good corner. Probably the cornerback 1 in 90% of NFL drafts. So I think the Saints go BPA here, get themselves a true shutdown corner. And now we have another very weird team, the New York Jets. What direction do they go? It's been reported that Aaron Rodgers, he does want to come back next year. The Jets expect him to come back next year. I don't think they're going to use the 8th overall pick on a quarterback, although you definitely could make that argument that they should just be looking for the future at this point. But I think the Jets could do a number of different things here. I could see another pass rusher if Joe Douglas does remain their GM, because he loves taking pass rushers in the first round. I do think they could take a cornerback as well, because DJ Reed, this could be his last year on the team. But do you really want to take cornerback 3 inside the top 10 in the NFL draft? I mean, that doesn't really seem like a great option either. So who knows exactly what the Jets are thinking. I do like pass rusher here, but I think I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant from Michigan. Their run defense has been pretty atrocious this year, and Grant, he may be the best interior defensive run stopper in this draft. And so he does need to develop his pass rushing skills. But I think for the Jets, they already kind of have that with Quinnen Williams on the interior of their defensive line. They've also spent first-round picks on Will McDonald, Jermaine Johnson, although he did tear his Achilles this year. He'll be back next year. So I think continuing to bolster up that defensive line and make their defense get back to like their 2022, 2023 form versus what they've been this year, I think getting Grant alongside Quinnen Williams will go a long way in ensuring that their defense is better next year. And now the Carolina Panthers. I feel like at this point, I'm saying this for most of these teams in the top 10. Who knows what direction this team wants to go in? I saw some reports a few days ago from the Athletic saying that Bryce Young, the Panthers still want to try and make it work. But then again today, I saw another Athletic report that they're considering all options. They may draft a quarterback like Cam Ward potentially. Maybe they'll try and sign Justin Fields or bring back Sam Darnold. Who knows what they want to do with the quarterback position? Could this be a scenario where David Tepper says, you know what? Why don't we take Jalen Milroe here and just have a super fun, another Alabama quarterback? But I think the best case scenario for the Panthers is getting some help, I think, on defense, because they really went all in on their offense this offseason to really help out Bryce Young and see what he was made of. Spent most of their draft picks on offense, spent all their money on the offensive line, trading for Deontay Johnson, who they did just trade again to the Baltimore Ravens. But I think defense makes sense for this team, and they need help with the pass rushing unit. How about Abdul Carter from Penn State? He's really been kind of maneuvering between like outside linebacker and kind of just being this edge player. But this year, Penn State made him a sole pass rusher, and he's been breaking out. Feels like every single week he's got a couple of sacks. Not the biggest guy off the edge. He reminds me a little bit of like Chop Robinson, who the Dolphins drafted last year, who he's pretty undersized for an edge rusher, but he has great speed off the edge. I think Abdul Carter is a lot more polished than Chop, though. He has a lot more pass rushing moves. He knows how to have some counters and get to the quarterback, and his production is there as well, because Chop, he did not have a ton of sacks in college. The thing with him was like, oh, he's always getting pressures. He's getting close to the quarterback. He just can't actually register them as sacks. With Abdul Carter, he's got more pass rushing moves, and we actually see the production at the college level, hence why Carter's going in the top 10 and Chop went, I think, like 26. So I just think the Panthers want to get some help on the defensive side of the ball, and who knows what they decide to do with the quarterback position. But I think you could really make an argument for any of these pass rushers to go here currently for the Panthers, but I like Abdul Carter here to sneak into the top 10. Now, the Dolphins are my team, so I have pretty good insight on which direction the Dolphins should go, which direction they're probably going to go. And I hate to say, but it does kind of depend on what happens with their current general manager, Chris Greer. If the Dolphins don't end this season on a good note, let's just say they win 6 or 7 games and they're not close to the playoffs, which I definitely think is in play. I don't think the Dolphins are a great team, although they just had a good win against the Rams. Maybe the Dolphins decide to go with a new regime. They bring in a new GM, they bring in even a new head coach. What would then happen with Tua Tagovailoa? I know a lot of people are like, oh, Tua just got paid, he got a massive contract. He did get extended, but the thing about the Tua contract is there is a potential out after this season. So if the Dolphins were to just cut to, I think before like March 14th or 13th, they would only owe his 2025 salary, and the last 2 years of that contract would void. That's pretty much the out in the deal. So the Dolphins would take on a salary for one season. We've seen many teams do it. The Denver Broncos, maybe the Cleveland Browns. I like to do that with Deshaun Watson as well. Just kind of move on, get a new quarterback in, and then restart. Do I think it's realistic that the Dolphins do that? I do not, even if they do get a new regime. I just don't think there probably is 3 quarterbacks that go inside the top 10. So I just don't see that here. I'm a pretty big fan of Garrett Nussmeier, but he's not had a good last couple of weeks for LSU. So his stock is dropping a bit. He might go back for his 5th year. I think somebody to watch is Drew Aller. I know he's a pretty polarizing prospect, but When you look at him, he's got the size, he's got great arm talent. He's a prototypical player. He kind of reminds me of like a Justin Herbert. I don't think he's as athletic as Herbert, but he's got the arm talent, he's got the size, and I could just see Aller being somebody that does rise up if he does come out this year during the offseason with like just his pro day, the combine, all his measurables. Offensive line is another very popular choice for the Dolphins, but I don't really think that makes a ton of sense, at least at the tackle position, because they have Austin Jackson, the right tackle, extended. He's got a couple years left on his contract. He's just an average starter. So I don't know if you would want to spend a top 10 pick on another right tackle to take over for him when you have a decent option there. At left tackle, Teron Armstead has been one of the best left tackles in the league this year. He might retire though, but the backup behind him is Patrick Paul. They just drafted him, I think, inside the top 55 picks last year from Houston. And he's a pretty raw prospect, but he's had a year to sit and develop. He's got really good size, really good athleticism for his size. He might take over next year. If you keep Mike McDaniel, the 49ers regime where he comes from didn't really spend a ton of assets or top assets on the offensive line. It's just not what they kind of really believe in. The scheme masks a lot of limitations. So they don't really like using premium picks on offensive linemen. So when I look at the Dolphins, there's a ton of different routes they could go, but I think Malachi Starks from Georgia makes a lot of sense. The Dolphins need another safety outside of Javon Holland, who may even just be a free agent this year and let go. He's been dealing with a ton of injuries the past couple of years. And even when he's on the field, he's pretty inconsistent as a player. So the Dolphins, who may be looking to kind of revamp their secondary, get a really good player and somebody that could end up being one of the best players in this entire draft. I'm a very big fan of Malachi Starks. I think he kind of reminds me of like Brian Branch and what he's been able to do for the Detroit Lions defense. I think Starks could have that similar type of impact. So Dolphins, Starks. The Dallas Cowboys. This has become like a very hyped up pick for whatever reason. Ashton Jeanty, maybe the Heisman from Boise State. I think Jerry Jones would sprint to hand in this card. When is Dak Prescott? When are the Cowboys at their best? When they have a very good running game. And this year, when their team has kind of fallen off a cliff, the run game has been very, very bad. One of the worst run games in the entire league. You get Jeanty, who is a very explosive player. He can catch passes out of the backfield as well. The Cowboys desperately need some other help on offense outside of CeeDee Lamb. I do see the rationale for defense because their defense is not good either. But I mean, come on. Jerry Jones, he's going to want to spend his premium pick on another weapon. Jeanty to Dallas. The Colts are next. I think they need help in their secondary, and the next best cornerback on the board is Benjamin Morrison from Notre Dame. I thought last year could be a year where the Colts really wanted to address the back end of their defense. Instead, they elected to go with a pass rusher in Laitu Latu. I was a fan of that pick, didn't mind it at all, but the Colts still really need help. Kenny Moore has really developed into really one of the best versatile pieces in the NFL for a secondary player, but they still need a true cornerback one. I think that's the biggest hole on their defense currently, and I think Morrison sliding in there at cornerback would be a very, very nice fit. I don't think there's a linebacker here that you would take with the 12th overall pick. There's not like a Luke Kuechly or a generational linebacker prospect to take this early in the draft. Now for the Bengals, I'm going to go with Deion Walker from Kentucky. The Bengals defense this year has just been very, very putrid. Costed them so many games. I mean, Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow every week feels like they're dominating. They're putting up 200 receiving yards, 400 passing yards, but their defense can't stop anybody. And so Deion Walker, somebody that can have a very nice pass rush from the interior of the defensive line, but also play the run, I think is a great fit and a massive need for what the Bengals are missing on the defensive side of the ball. I just don't think it's smart for them to take another receiver this early in the draft. I know they're probably going to be losing T. Higgins, but I mean, their offense has been great without Higgins, who's been hurt a lot the last 2 years. So I think getting Walker a fantastic presence in the interior of their defense as they try and rebuild that unit makes a lot of sense with the 13th pick. Now, Tampa Bay, I think when their offense is fully healthy, it's a very, very talented group, but the place where they have been struggling this year is to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks when they're not using the famous Todd Bowl blitzes. So I think another pass rusher makes sense for them. And Nick Scorton, I think he's a pretty good fit. He's got a great spin move. That's kind of what he's known for off the edge. He's a little bit raw. He does need some refining in terms of just other pass rush moves, other counter moves, but he's got good size. I think he has good athleticism. And I think in Todd Bowles' scheme where he can manipulate some free rushes, Scorton could be a really good player for them early on. And I think that's a perfect place for him to go, get developed, and then emerge as a really nice pass rusher down the line. With Seattle here at 15, I think the value of Kelvin Banks Jr. is just too good to pass up. this might be kind of not good to have him going this late in the draft because, I mean, when you have somebody with his talent and size at the tackle position, which is a very premium position, they usually go very high in the draft. But with how this has kind of fallen, I think he's a perfect fit in Seattle. I would watch quarterback here. Like if somebody does really emerge, Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller, I could see the Seattle Seahawks getting very aggressive as they kind of have a new regime now. Ryan Grubb as their new offensive coordinator, I think, has done a good job this year, but you just kind of see the inconsistencies week in and week out of Geno Smith, and I think he's going to be 35 years old next year. So does Seattle maybe try and take a flyer on one of these quarterbacks, maybe even Quinn Ewers if they fall in love with one of these guys? I could see it, but just because of all the uncertainty regarding these quarterbacks, I'm going to take Kelvin Banks Jr. and make him a Seahawk here with pick number 15. Pick number 16 for the Los Angeles Rams. Let's get fun here and take Colston Loveland out of Michigan. I don't know exactly about the fit or if Les Snead and Sean McVay would take a tight end this early in the draft, but Tyler Higbee, he's coming back from a severe knee injury. He's also getting up there in age a little bit. Why not add another weapon to this offense with Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyron Williams, and really try and go on a run with the last few years you have with Matthew Stafford? The offensive line, I do like some of the pieces there. It's just been kind of banged up this season. I think the only corner I would take in this spot is Siobhan Revel, but he's coming back from an ACL injury. So maybe the Rams take a shot on him, but I don't think there's a linebacker I would take here if I was LA. So I'm going to go with Colston Loveland, kind of just throw a dart at the dartboard pick. There was some speculation about maybe the Rams with Brock Bowers last year. So I feel like they're kind of interested in another weapon, and Colston Loveland, he could make some sense. Now, the Bears at 17, pretty easy. Going Cameron Williams here, a tackle from Texas, another one. They just need help on the offensive line. Caleb was sacked 9 times against the New England Patriots on Sunday, so they need some help desperately. And Cameron Williams, he's a little bit of a raw player, but again, that's kind of why these tackles get drafted so early, is because of their physical characteristics. It's such a big position of need for a lot of teams because it's not easy to get a good offensive lineman. So Cameron Williams here, he's got all of the traits. I do think the Bears will be picking higher than this, so they'll probably be able to get like Kelvin Banks Jr., somebody a bit more refined. But where things sit currently, I think Cameron Williams here to Chicago makes a lot of sense. And now the 49ers, as I stated earlier, I don't think they love taking offensive linemen this early in the draft. And so picking at number 18, Siobhan Revel from ECU, I do think is a good fit with San Fran. I do think they're going to be letting go of Travarius Ward this offseason. He's just going to be a free agent. His contract is expiring. They did just extend Lenore on a huge contract, but they're going to need another corner, another starter at that position. And the 49ers, they don't have a ton of cap room, so they're not going to be going out and paying somebody $50+ million to be a starting corner for them. So they use their draft picks very smartly, and they're going to go after a position of need here. And Siobhan Revel, he's a very good player at a position of need. And if he did not tear his ACL, maybe he played himself into being even a higher pick, maybe even being drafted before like Benjamin Morrison. But because of that knee injury, I think he does fall to being, where do we have him? Like cornerback number 4. So we're going to have him going to San Fran here as they need another corner after Ward leaves. The Broncos, I do think this is about surrounding Bo Nix with weapons. I'm going to go Luther Burden, the third from Missouri. Maybe the best yards after catch receiver in this draft. I mean, if he gets the ball in his hands, watch out, because he can make a few people miss. Take his slant 80 yards to the house. The question with him is, can he deal with press coverage, and can he be an X wide receiver in the NFL? He's not the biggest guy. I don't think he's even above 6 feet tall. He does not have great physicality to him. So how is he going to deal with press? How is he going to deal with some other bigger corners? That is really the main question with Burden. Maybe Missouri's not using him quite right this year, which is why his production is not as good as it was in 2023. I still think he's a really good receiver prospect, but I just think when you compare him to like McMillan, we know McMillan can be an X wide receiver in the NFL. I don't think we know that for certain right now with Burden. So I'm going to have him go number 19 to the Broncos, who just want to get another weapon, because I guess they already do kind of have their X receiver with Courtland Sutton. So now you plug in Burden to be your number 2 receiver. That probably fits his skill set a little bit better, especially right away. For the Houston Texans, this is a pretty easy pick for me. They desperately need help on their offensive line. I mean, CJ Stroud has been under pressure a ton this season, and I think getting somebody that can play tackle or guard makes a lot of sense. And I'm trying to find him here, but I can't. So we're going to have to go directly to offensive tackle, and it's going to be Jonah Savainea from Arizona. He has experience playing guard or tackle. He's got great athleticism. He's got good size. I feel like I kind of say the same thing for a lot of these top tackle prospects, but he does have experience playing guard. I think right away that could be where he plays from day one. You have Laramie Tunsil left tackle, Titus Howard at right tackle. They need some help in the interior, and then maybe if one of those guys gets injured, then he can step out and play that tackle position, but just a very versatile player. I don't think the Texans really have a ton of needs. I mean, their defense has been great this year. They've got some good receivers when they are healthy. So I think just fortifying the trenches, going after position of need makes a lot of sense, and getting a versatile piece for the offensive line is where I think they should go. For the Atlanta Falcons at 21, I had them taking Dallas Turner in a lot of mock drafts last year, and I think, again, going on the defensive line, another player from Alabama, and LT Overton, I think makes a lot of sense for them. Their pass rush is one of the worst in the league. They need a threat off the edge. And Overton, he's kind of similar to Dallas Turner, in that he's a pretty raw player. He doesn't really have a ton of production, but you see the athleticism, you see the size, and for the Falcons, who probably will be picking in this 20 range, I think Overton's a great pick at this spot. I also do like Mykel Williams. Maybe they like to go one of these other players, but I do think pass rusher, somebody that does have a high ceiling, I just think that is what the Falcons have to do in this draft, especially with this window with Kirk Cousins. And I think it's a pretty similar type of thinking with the Arizona Cardinals. They need help with their pass rush. So Mykel Williams from Georgia, I'm going to have him go to the Arizona Cardinals. He does need some refining, but again, he's another physical freak, and the Cardinals, they have nothing off the edge. They need some help. They got Darius Robinson from Missouri last year, and now you add in Mykel Williams. That is two really good prospects to really fortify that unit. I could see offensive tackle here, maybe Ursary from Minnesota, but I think for right now, I do like Mykel Williams going here to Arizona. The Chargers, this was like a good spot to have another tight end go, and that's going to be Tyler Warren from Penn State. We know Jim Harbaugh does not like taking wide receivers in the first round. Does he break his rule and maybe give Herbert another weapon like Isaiah Bond, maybe Egbuka? Maybe. But I think Tyler Warren kind of fits more in their line of thinking, a great receiving tight end. He can also contribute in the running game as well, because Penn State, they're not exactly an air raid offense. They're running the ball a ton. Warren has experience in that type of system. I think he makes a lot of sense with the Chargers. For the Green Bay Packers, I've seen this mocked a decent amount. I think the fit does make sense. Jalen Walker from Georgia. He's kind of a hybrid. He's not going to play all the pass rushing downs for you as an edge rusher. He's not going to be a full-time linebacker either. He kind of does both. And for the Packers who run a hybrid scheme, they like to have some chess piece players move him around. Jalen Walker fits exactly with what they like to do. Now, the Commanders, they were in the sweepstakes a lot for some receivers. They tried to go after Brandon Ayuk. They even tried, I believe, to go after Deontay Johnson, just give another target to Jaden Daniels. And I think this is a spot where they're going to do just that. Isaiah Bond from Texas, kind of bring that deep threat, probably the fastest receiver in this draft, and give Jaden Daniels another down the field target. They got Terry McLaurin. He's more of a possession receiver, though. I don't think he separates super well. Isaiah Bond is somebody that can separate because of that speed. Not the biggest guy in the world, but gives another weapon to Jaden Daniels, and the Commanders, I think, are going to just try and give him all the help they can this offseason. The Baltimore Ravens are another team that I think the need is pretty clear. They need help in their secondary, and at corner, I don't see a ton that I would like here with pick number 26, but I have seen a lot of Raven fans complain about Marcus Williams, their free safety alongside Kyle Hamilton, who's one of the best players, period, in the league. So why not get Kevin Winston Jr., who's kind of similar a little bit to Kyle Hamilton, in the sense that he can be like a chess piece who plays in the box. He can be the single high safety as well. He's rangy, he's got good size, he's very physical, just kind of fits the prototype of what you consider a Baltimore Raven. I don't know the whole details about Marcus Williams' like contract situation. If he is playing as bad as a lot of Raven fans say that he is, would the Ravens really move on from him and then take his replacement in the first round? But I do think Kevin Winston Jr. and Kyle Hamilton could be a really fun duo in the back end of a defense. The Pittsburgh Steelers are another team that's been really in the sweepstakes for a receiver, and I think Emeka Egbuka, he could fit really nicely with what the Steelers want to do. I know they just traded for Mike Williams, but he only has 1 year on his contract. The Steelers still need another option out wide with George Pickens. He's really good after the catch. He's sure-handed. He is a great blocker as well in space. He just doesn't have a ton of reps on the boundary, just being, like I've said many times, like a true number one receiver. So he probably will play in the slot a ton for Pittsburgh. Will they want to take a slot receiver pick number 27, especially when they drafted Roman Wilson last year, who hasn't, I don't even think he's played a snap this year for the Steelers. I did think Wilson projected better to be a slot receiver, but I don't know exactly if the Steelers can just be like, you know what, we're going to avoid this need because he's missed the entire season due to a hamstring injury. So let's take Ibuka here to the Steelers. They get another weapon for Russell Wilson if they do decide to bring him back in this offense. Now the Vikings, I think they could go running back. Aaron Jones, of course, is on the other side of 30. Who knows how much left he has in the tank, and really outside Aaron Jones, they don't have much at the running back position. Now I know they're loaded with weapons, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson. But with JJ McCarthy likely going to be starting next year, they're probably going to want to rely on the running game some. I think Quinshon Judkins from Ohio State is a good fit with what they like to do in offense. I think in the Vikings offense, which is a zone running scheme, he fits that well. He does have some decent hands out of the backfield as well, and they like to utilize their running backs a ton with screens, little dump offs. Quinshon Judkins to the Vikings, they get themselves another weapon. The Philadelphia Eagles, I'm going to have James Pierce Jr. go here. I might be completely out of left field and not have him go early enough in these mock drafts, but he is somebody that has great speed off the line. He's got tremendous bend as well to just go around the tackles. He's just not very big for an edge rusher. So in the running game, and if you get a very powerful tackle that can just get his hands on him, he will be shut down, which I do think is why his stock has kind of dropped. I mean, I feel like last year people were having him mocked like inside like the top 10, maybe like a top 5 pick. So I don't think that's going to be the case anymore. Maybe he does go earlier just because of that athleticism. But the Eagles and Howie Roseman, they love taking defensive linemen in the back end of the draft. And James Pierce would be another just good addition to that defensive line. And with Vic Fangio, the defensive scheme that he runs, just kind of a hybrid defense, 3-4. I think James Pierce could be somebody that he moves around a lot, gets some free rushes, and he would be a demon off the edge for Philly. Buffalo up next. I'm going to go TJ Sanders from South Carolina. I've been really impressed with what he's been able to do on a week-to-week basis in the SEC. And the Bills' defensive line hasn't been as good this year. I mean, that's really what their defense has been priding themselves on the last couple of years, is just their deep rotation. Ed Oliver hasn't been as good since he signed his long-term contract. The Bills also have been looking for another just defensive tackle next to him. I know they just brought back Jordan Phillips, a longtime veteran, to kind of help with that rotation. He could put on some more weight at the next level to help him a bit in the run, but he's still 6'5", like around 300 pounds. He's going to be a decent pass rush threat right away. It's just kind of about refining some areas of his game. So TJ Sanders to Buffalo. The Lions at 31, I think Princely Unamilian from Ole Miss is a good fit. Very high motor, good athleticism to get off the edge. Kind of like what I've been saying for most of these prospects, he does need some refining with his pass rush moves. He probably needs to put on some weight to his frame as well. But it seems like he has all the intangibles that the Lions really go after. Players that play very hard. They never quit, never give up. And with Aiden Hutchinson's injury, and even before his injury, not even having a really good pass rusher outside of him, they need some more help on the defensive line. Maybe Zadarius Smith re-signs and they have a vet there, but I don't think you want somebody who's over 30 years old being somebody who you rely on to play a big bulk of snaps. So the Lions get some help for their defensive line. Hopefully Aiden Hutchinson comes back healthy, and then maybe you can develop him and have a really good 1-2 punch. And then for Kansas City at pick 32, they could go a number of different routes here, but I think Ariante Ursary from Minnesota makes sense, just needing another offensive lineman. They've been really trying to address the tackle position the last couple of years. I know they took Kingsley Suamataia, I think in the second round in last year's draft, but he has not really been able to be a solid player or reliable when he's been on the field. I mean, they benched him for Wanya Morris because of how he's been playing. So maybe they try and make things work with him another year, or maybe they just convert him to like guard, see what he can do there. But I mean, the Chiefs, you could really make an argument for any position. Maybe they want to go wide receiver. I don't really think there's anybody worth taking here at this point in the draft. Maybe they try and get another piece for their defense. But I think Ursary, he makes sense again as a guy that maybe could be their next replacement and starter at left tackle. But here's a final look at the mock draft. I tried to have a decent balance between kind of some fun picks, also positions of need. I'm still learning about a lot of these prospects and who could go where, what range of the first round some of these guys will go. There's just a lot of prospects and there's still a handful of college games to go. And then of course we have the whole offseason process of the combine, pro days. So a lot can change in the next couple of months. But in mid-November, this is what my mock draft is looking like. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think about it. What do you think about what I have your team selecting? Would you change your pick? Do you agree with it? Or do you have any other draft insight about these prospects? Just let me know all of it in the comment section down below. But subscribe to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on the video if you did enjoy it. And as always, thank you so much for watching. And I'll catch you guys in my next one.